Hello everyone. Our webinar today is titled Teachers, Administrators, and School Counselors, Using Non-Cognitive Skills to Improve Student Success. And we are happy to be joined by our presenters, Dion Christie, Director of Principal Leadership Development at the National Association of Elementary School Principals, Eric Sparks, Assistant Director at the American School Counselor Association, and Diane Acuna-Thompson, Director of Office of Advisement and Counseling at Gwinnett County Public Schools in Georgia. Dion, you now have the floor.
Thank you for joining us. I wanted to share a little bit of the context, the background of this whole project coming together. 3 organizations, national organizations, are working together as a collaborative group through a jointly funded grant through the Learning First Alliance. We are working together to collaborate for student success and looking at college and career readiness. And the 3 organizations are the American School Counselor Association, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and the National Association of Elementary School Principals. The 3 jointly funded partners identified and selected 5 promising districts across the country to look at effective and promising practices around college and career readiness. These participating districts attended a professional learning opportunity and were a part of a work knowledge advisory group. The 5 participating districts are Chicago Public Schools, Cobb County School District, Colorado Springs School District 11, Massachusetts Regional Vocational Technical School, and Gwinnett County Public Schools. Today, the webinar will feature Gwinnett County Public Schools as one of the promising participating districts today. Through this effort, we are providing strategies and supports to look at what it takes to have growth mindset and clear behaviors around non-cognitive skills for college and career readiness. The key objectives of the professional learning training opportunity was to have a cohort of principal leaders, teacher leaders, and school counselor leaders. This opportunity allowed them to leverage their expertise around student skills needed for core college and career readiness standards, providing optimum environment for meeting academic benchmarks. The second objective of the professional learning training opportunity was to have this core cohort to focus on student mindsets and behaviors through learning strategies, self-management skills, and social skills that are integrated into these standards for high-performing classroom instruction and school culture embedded in a school-wide learning opportunity around outcomes. When we look at these core opportunities, one of the key factors of success is establishing a culture of collaboration. I'm going to go through 3 aspects of developing a strong culture of collaboration. The first aspect involves the principal leader. The principal role has evolved over the years to become more complex and challenging. And as the nation enters into a new era of accountability that affords an opportunity for multiple measures and growth ushered in by the passage of the Every Student Succeeds Act, these 3 organizations are looking forward, fast forward into the future of making sure that there are key strategies and resources to support principal leaders along with their teachers and school counselors, to ensure challenging state academic standards that are consistent with mindset and clear behaviors of helping students become college and career ready. And so the evolving role is really transformational. This role allows the school principal to connect deeply and co-construct a school culture with school counselors and teachers in a way that informs high-stakes accountability for supporting all aspects of a student's development and demands that they co-construct an environment that demonstrates clear vision, courage, and skill to lead and advocate for effective learning communities in which all students and adults reach their highest potential around this college and career readiness work. The second aspect is creating collaborative structures for supportive and shared leadership, vision, values, and goals. And so when we look at a culture of collaboration, we're looking at creating structures to support everyone as ideas, information, materials, learning strategies, and supports are shared. Collaboration goes beyond the basic essentials and even beyond cooperation. Members of the community create a culture that is consistent in working very closely together, connected for the benefit of all students. The third aspect is engaging in continuous improvement and collective inquiry. When principals work closely with school counselors and the teachers in the school, they form very strong relationships, relational trust, and a will to do the necessary things to create clear mindset and behaviors to support collaborative work. All of the individuals in the schools are growing professionally, and they learn to view themselves as leaders and learners, constantly working on continuous improvement of teaching and learning skills, constantly expanding their competence to produce desired outcomes, and working together for the alignment of learning needs, standards that support curriculum and instruction, assessments that align with those aspects, and strategies for professional growth around common goals of getting kids college and career ready. Collaboration is the key. When we look at effective school cultures that exhibit high levels of collaboration, it is an environment where school principals set conditions and critical foundations in working with teachers and school counselors in early learning and ongoing success for all students. There is a deeper foundation, a deeper connection for a common vision and understanding of balancing a culture of intellectual stimulation and growth behaviors with a mindset clear in making sure that everyone is on the same page, starting in early elementary and middle school years to high school and beyond. So when we're thinking about what an effective school collaborative learning environment would be, these are key attributes that have been research-based and evidence-based through NAESP's leading learning communities. They are standards for what principals should know and be able to do to collaboratively work with school counselors and teachers, families, communities, and students in a way that supports positive student outcomes. There are 5 key attributes. Principals with school counselors and teachers create a co-vision. They co-construct the vision of a strong learning environment that is based on relational trust and connectedness with students with their mission, their values, and their core beliefs. So a school principal works with their school leaders to look at what are the things that we want to do. What do we stand for? How do we define success? What would be our ideal graduate? What would we need to do to ensure that all adults are on the same page and are using consistent concepts and practices to support students for college and career readiness? The second aspect is when principals work very closely with school counselors and teachers to co-lead a school culture in a way that places students first and adult learning at the center. So they make sure that everyone is learning together, they are lead learners, and that learning also involves the conversation and the support of students. Principals with school counselors and teachers co-set high expectations of what they want their school culture to be in behavior and in mindset. And they create clear college and career standards of behaviors, skills, attitudes, strategies, and dispositions. Principals with school counselors and teachers also co-construct a climate conducive for kids to be more self-directed in their own learning and the ownership of their goals in being successful. They do this by having a continuous improvement culture that involves all the adults and students. And this continuous improvement is tied to student learning and other school goals to ensure that there is a seamless culture of support for college and career readiness. The final attribute looks at the principal with guidance counselors and teachers co-managing, looking at evidence of effectiveness, data, knowledge, to constantly inform decisions and measure progress of performance, not only for students, but also for the adults that come in contact with students. According to the Wallace Foundation, in looking at the school principal as leader, guiding schools to better teaching and learning practices, they find that there is much greater gain in student achievement in a school when people work collaboratively, in teams, thinking about the vision, thinking about the structures, thinking about the strategies and the alignment that makes all of the connections of how students learn, develop, and grow. They do this as teams, and they stay together over a period of time and build collective knowledge, academic rigor, behavioral skills for collective capacity. Collaborative school teams focus on one key element. Every adult, every student is looked at as learner-centered leaders. Administrators, principals, assistant principals, other school administrators, teachers, teacher leaders, school counselor teams, school counselor leaders, families, communities, and student leaders together help each other understand their part and their role in something greater than themselves. And they promote appropriate behavior and beliefs and values of working closely together, focusing on everyone's performance, everyone's confidence, and development to improve positive student college and career trajectory outcomes. That concludes the collaborative piece of the work.
And this is Eric Sparks. I'm with the American School Counselor Association. And I worked with the organizational team as well as the trainings themselves. So we wanted to give you a quick overview of what the training and the work that the collaborative teams from the schools completed as a part of it. We start with the research and reviewing research with the participants to look into what helps students to be successful. What are the factors that make students successful? So one of the things that is clear that, of course, content knowledge and academic skills are critical for students to be successful academically. But in addition to those, students must also develop a set of behaviors, skills, attitudes, and strategies to help them to be successful, to help them to master content, to help them to demonstrate their mastery of academic skills. Those behavior, skills, attitudes, and strategies are grouped together under the term non-cognitive factors. So non-cognitive factors are these behavior, skills, attitudes, and strategies that are not tested on cognitive exams. They're skills that are often called soft skills or executive functioning, but are factors that are critical to student success. For many years, non-cognitive factors have been considered nice but not required, and didn't necessarily have a place, a prominent place at the table in terms of what students were learning. But we know that through the research, that non-cognitive skills are essential for students to reach high academic standards. And our highest academic standards across the country, the highest academic standards we've had in unified across the country right now are the Common Core state standards, as well as the other standards that states have developed that are outside the Common Core to raise the bar for their students. But non-cognitive skills, the research is clear that non-cognitive skills are essential for students to meet those high academic standards. Employers have also been aware and have promoted non-cognitive skills for many years. Often what we hear from the business community is that they find employees that have applied knowledge and academic content, but they don't necessarily have the non-cognitive factors that are needed to be successful. So the perseverance, creativity, teamwork, collaboration, leadership skills. These are often skills that are challenging to find for employers when they are looking for employees that are ready to go to work. The non-cognitive skills research is also clear that non-cognitive factors have an important impact on a student's GPA. So what does GPA measure? That's a question that we often think about when we're talking about non-cognitive factors. We know that GPA measures content, knowledge, and academic skills. That's clear that GPA is a reflection of that. But it also measures other factors that fall under that non-cognitive category. Students may have the content, knowledge, and academic skills, but if they don't complete their assignments, we know that will have an impact on their GPA. If they don't participate in class, if they're not punctual, if they don't attend class or attend school, if academic behaviors as well as attitudes are also all factors that impact a student's GPA and are all very important in students being able to obtain a high GPA. So the American School Counselor Association has developed the ASCA Mindsets and Behaviors for Student Success K-12 college and career readiness standards for every student. And these standards are based on the research of non-cognitive factors. The standards themselves are a foundational piece of the collaboration between the administrators, teachers, and school counselors in the work that we have done together as a part of this project. There are 35 standards, and these are available on the ASCA website. And at the end of this presentation, we're going to direct you to a website that has resources which will include these standards as well as a number of other items that we'll be talking about today. Standards themselves, as Dion mentioned earlier, are those knowledge, attitudes, and skills that students need to be successful. And we work towards those. We help students to learn those so that they will gain greater outcomes. You can think of those standards, you can think of those knowledge, attitudes, and skills as really the road to better outcomes for students. And with those outcomes, we're referring to academics, behavior, and attendance. And if you're familiar with a comprehensive school counseling program based on the ASCA national model, we focus much on showing results in terms of how students are impacted with their academics, their achievement, their graduation, their promotion rates. Look at their behavior. Are we reducing suspension, reducing discipline referrals, and promoting appropriate behavior? And as attendance, are students attending school, and are they feeling comfortable and safe at school so that their attendance is high? So the knowledge, attitudes, and skills all promote better results for academics, behavior, and attendance. Some of the key research for the ASCA mindsets and behaviors is listed in the document itself, and you'll be able to see that on our website. But one of the main factors that we used was a meta-analysis of research on non-cognitive factors called Teaching Adolescents to Become Learners. It's a critical literature review from the University of Chicago School Research Consortium. In this research, you'll see a summary of research on learning strategies. And as this diagram shows, the research shows that academic mindsets impacts perseverance, it impacts academic behaviors and academic performance, and learning strategies impacts all of those. So all of these categories are connected with each other in terms of creating students that are college and career ready. From this meta-analysis, also there's a summary of research on social skills. In social skills, the interpersonal skills, empathy, cooperation, assertion, responsibility, many of the factors that we are talking about with non-cognitive factors, these social skills all impact a student's academic behavior, are critical to academic success. The full list of resources used in developing the ASCA Mindsets and Behaviors standards is to take a look at those as you say research and the best practice behind these standards.
Eric, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that slide for us?
The research that was used, the research and best practice used for the ASCA Mindsets and Behaviors is listed on this screen, but as a part of the ASCA Mindset Behavior document. So you can take a look at those if you're interested more in the research and best practice behind the student standards. When we think about the teamwork that happens at a school and the collaboration that happens, if you're in a school building, you know that there's all kinds of good things that are happening in a school to support student success. There's obviously teaching. There are numbers of support that are happening. There's leadership in the building. There's collaborative committees such as student support teams and PBIS. and multi-tier systemic support. So there's lots of things that are happening. And you can think of each of those as one of the arrows on this screen. If we're going to be most successful, we want to make sure that all of those initiatives, all those activities are aligned, and they're all pointing in the same direction, so that our work is aligned. We have similar language, that we're collaborating and bringing the greater sum of all of those parts towards student success. So that was a brief overview of some of the training that was a part of this collaborative. Now I'd like to move into the work that the school teams actually did as they collaborated to help their students to reach the highest levels of success. They first took time to assess current performance and trends at their schools. So they looked at their school improvement plan. Where were they in terms of progress towards the goals of their school improvement plan? They also looked at school data, and if there were new school data that might give indication of their progress toward the school improvement plan, or might further inform future goals that are important for student success. So they were really looking to identify, like in this picture of the school of fish, they're really looking to identify important trends, such as or things that stand out, such as the goldfish in this screen. It was important that they talked about the data and the plan itself, about what the data was showing, but not to look at solutions at this point. They were basically really delving into the data and looking for trends, but not looking for solutions at this point. The solutions started happening in phase 2, where each of the roles individually thought about how they could impact the data, how they could impact the trends that the data showed, how they could impact future progress towards the goals of the school improvement plan. So teachers thought about that. How do I make a difference in that data and improving the data based on my work within the state curriculum standards or the district curriculum standards, or thinking about the curricular pacing guide that they might have. What would, as a teacher, would I need to focus on to help to improve our data or to move us closer towards reaching our goals? For the school counselors, they looked at the ASCA mindsets and behaviors. What specific standards might be most impactful in helping students to improve their academics behavior and attendance, how they could impact the data, as well as help the school reach the goals of the school improvement plan. They also looked at their school counseling core curriculum action plan to see what initiatives, what lessons, what activities they have in place for larger groups of students that could impact the data as well. And then finally, administrators thought about the data in terms of how they could impact the data from a perspective of before, during, and after instruction. What can they do to support instruction before, during the instruction, and after the instruction, so that it's most impactful for the students? They also looked at and thought about how they could impact behavioral outcomes. What behavioral outcomes might they focus on to help to create a school climate that's most appropriate for achieving the highest standards? After they did that work individually, they then got back together and thought about, where can we connect as our 3 different roles. You have administration, you have school counseling, you have the subject areas, the teachers of the subject areas. Where might there be some obvious connections and some simple connections that could help each of the 3 roles support each other towards reaching the greater goals of the school? They did that by creating a list of their activities, bringing those lists together, and then looking at where those obvious connections were. So we weren't looking for new things to add to the individual's plates necessarily. We were looking at what they were already doing, how is it bringing about the effect that we want, and can we work together in our activities that we're already doing to help each other implement those activities and reach the greater goal. They thought about the level of collaboration within that work and those areas that were maybe the most obvious places where they could collaborate, and then started thinking about what they could do together in terms of a level of collaboration. If it was a level 1, then that means it would be completely siloed, that the 3 roles were acting completely individually, may or may not have knowledge of each other's roles and activities. If it was a level 5, then they would be completely aligned. The work in the subject areas, the work through administration, the work through the school counseling program would be completely aligned. So it may be a challenge to get to that level 5 collaboration immediately, but how close are they in their work together and having that highest level of collaboration? And then finally, the last part was they put together a plan of how they can make it happen. They looked at the grade level that it would happen. They looked at subject areas, so specific classes that they could bring this collaborative effort together to work together to promote student achievement. They looked at specific lesson plans. They identified the standards from the ASCA mindsets and behaviors. They identify the curriculum materials, the projected start and end date, and then who would be involved in the delivery of that. So this was the template that they used, and Diane is going to talk about an example of that as she gives some examples of really voices from the field, how it played out within her school district.
Thank you, Eric. This is Diane Thompson. I'm the Director of Advisement and Counseling for Gwinnett County Public Schools. We are very fortunate that we've been working on the ASCA framework for about 8 years now. So we brought together elementary, middle, and high schools to this particular training so that we could have more intentional conversations about how we can work collaboratively to enhance these mindsets and behaviors. One of the things that came out of the training, we often talk about grade level planning and we talk about vertical teaming, but what we realized in this was that we really have not brought in all of the areas. One of the things from my own experience I could share is that we would always go to the subject area in order to present our classroom core curriculums to those that we knew would accept us and where there seemed to be a logical match for whatever it was we were presenting. But one of the things that this forced us to do was to look at all of the areas where there's a natural feed-in for our work with the work that they're already doing. And with ASCA, there's one domain, the career domain, where we always feel like we need to be looking at and improving. When Eric gave us the opportunity to be a part of this training, one of the things I was most excited about was looking at the CTE area, looking at the working more with math, because a lot of what we do is those critical thinking skills, and they are a logical fit. We've always worked with language arts and social studies and things. So when the folks sat down to actually talk about, where this could be a fit, our administrators are really excited to see how well they already aligned and see areas where we could enhance the work that we were doing. So I believe there is an example of one of our middle schools, and they looked, as he said, at what their school improvement plan is. In our state, in our district, we have gone to a 5-year plan. There was a time that we did 1-year school improvement plans, but we now look at 5-year plans, obviously reviewing them every year. And so a lot of this work we had already done up front. And we're very blessed that our administrators are fairly well versed in the ASCA framework. We are fortunate to have adopted a counselor evaluation that is based on the framework, so they're familiar with the language. So it was just kind of really getting them up to speed on mindsets and behaviors specifically, and it was a great opportunity to train more teachers about it. So with this, obviously they have an attendance goal at this school, and so that's why they targeted it for all grade levels. I don't know of any school that doesn't have an attendance goal because it is so critical to our work. But you know, they specifically identified all of the programs in the schools. We have a Teachers as Advisors program in all of our middle and high schools, and certainly our group work, working with individuals. The Kid Talks or Kid Collaborations is really helping to zoom in on those kids who we've seen changes in their whether the attendance, behavior, and course completion. But that's our ABC report. We're lucky to have one that refreshes every night. One of the things you'll see there is the SEI surveys. In our schools from 3rd to 12th grade, we use an instrument called the Student Engagement Instrument. And you can actually Google it. It's a public survey that's available. One of the developers happens to work in our research department. But we use this to also look at the affective and cognitive skills of our students. And we do this 2 times a year in the fall and the spring. And when those are only really snapshots in time, but when you put them next to the attendance, behaviors, and course completion, it gives you sometimes identifiers about kids who, while they may be attending school, they might be, you know, completing coursework, they're disengaging from the school process. So that was definitely a critical piece for us in this work. But you can see that we're using multiple data points, and that is really where we have gotten as a district for our school counseling program, is making those data-driven decisions. If you look further down in the example, you see that there are some that are more course-specific. For example, the second one is they're targeting the 6th graders. They're looking at language arts and social studies. And so, again, having all of those people at the table at the same time, being very intentional about where our curriculum areas all intersect and how we can all impact that the overall experience for the student is really just critical. And so I think for us, one of the things that came out of this training was our needing to do more of that. And I've always told our school counselors that it's critical that they attend grade level meetings and they know what areas teachers are struggling with. The example I often use is, say the testing shows that the kids are struggling with percentages. Well, I might be going in to do a bullying awareness a lesson, and I would, if I knew that percentages was an area that they were struggling with, I would probably give the definition of bullying. I would say, based on that definition, and how many of you think that you've been bullied, and then what percentage of the class is that? It brings that relevance piece in, but we have to sit and be intentional in the planning of what we're doing, when we're doing it, and having those curriculum pacing guides is critical because we can see where the natural fits are. So that's just a few of the examples on this particular form where they saw the overlap. This is, again, one of our middle schools, and this principal is a huge counseling advocate. In fact, she's been a national advocate recognized by ASCA. But she was so excited, and she said, we will be continuing this work because this is exactly what we need to do. This is what's best for kids.
The resources that we've mentioned today, some of the research, the example of the lesson plan, as well as a number of other resources are available on our website at schoolcounselor.org/noncognitive resources. So feel free to take a look at those and use those if they're helpful in your work. If you want to do more work around non-cognitive resources, some of those documents will be helpful for you. So at this point, we'd like to open it for any questions or comments from our participants today.
And just as a reminder, please submit all questions through the Questions tab of the GoToWebinar menu on your right. Also, while we wait for any questions to come in, I encourage you to look at the Handouts tab also on that menu on the right-hand side of your screen and download the handout if you're interested in accessing that later as a resource. We don't have any questions at the moment, so we can give it a couple more minutes if we'd like. Should you have any questions that come up after the webinar today, my contact information is here, and you can feel free to email me and I will get an answer to you. Eric, Dion, or Diane, do you have any closing comments?
I would just like to thank NAS and ASCA for the opportunity to be a part of this and to help us push our conversation forward. As I said, we've been working on this work for 8 years, but it was just a great reminder that it's a continuous improvement process. And I honestly can say that without the administrative support, wherever you are, this isn't going to be possible. So I appreciate partnering with NAS. Also, just the opportunity to be a part of this work. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, we really appreciated the opportunity to work with the districts and look forward to sharing this with other districts in the future who might be interested in looking at how to build even stronger collaborative teams than they already have in place. The collaborative efforts are really supportive of each other, and they're very rewarding when you have a team that their activities, their lessons, their programming is all aligned to help to support those greater needs for our students.
All right, great, thank you. And we still don't have any questions, so I'm going to thank all of you for joining us today for this webinar. We'll also post the recording to this webinar on the resource page that was just shown a couple of slides back. So if you'd like to watch the recording of that at a later date or share with your colleagues, please feel free to do that. We'll also be offering other webinars in the upcoming months, so please check those out on our website, schoolcounselor.org/webinars. And again, please take a minute to download the handout if you're interested. And thanks, everyone, and thank you, and have a good day.